Welcome back, Casper Warriors. Look what is on the board right now. This is the position that caused some debates in my previous video, and I'll explain in a moment. So what I'm going to be doing in today's video is responding to some of those arguments and criticisms from some of my viewers. So this is the Italian game, 2 knights defense, and of course we are still looking at my unique way of beating the d3 Italian opening with this weird line bishop b4 check. And here is how we reach to this position. For those of you who don't know, white starts with e4 and then we go e5. This is the king's pawn game, knight f3, knight c6, normal stuff, and after bishop c4, which is the Italian game. For now, I still recommend you respond with knight f6, which is the 2 knights defense. The reason why I love this 2 knights defense is that it kind of forces white in some way to play the d3 Italian, which is the main area of my meat. I mean, they just have to do something about this pawn, right? Yeah, sometimes they can play knight c3, which is the 4 knights, but this is not very common at the top level due to, I mean, its simplicity. You can sacrifice your knight. After that, you go d5. I mean, you're just doing great as black. We're not going to go into that. I mean, I covered this line in my first video on this topic. The other move we are not going to cover is the knight g5 line. Okay, anyway, knight g5, d5, pawn takes, knight a5, attacking the bishop, bishop b5 check, bishop d7. This is the line I recommended because it's very stable and solid. The idea is just to avoid tons of theory and tactics with moves like pawn to c6 here, which is the main line. But anyway, back to the Italian game, 2 knights defense, where white responds with pawn to d3. Let's start with the first argument that bishop b4 check is bad. First, I'm not disputing that fact. In fact, the main line in this position is bishop c5, that we know. But in chess, there's what we call superseding concept. There's also what we call candidate moves or alternative moves and sidelines. In this case, I would consider bishop b4 check to be a sideline and more of a surprising move, by the way, to try and take our opponents out of their comfort zone.
Guys, chess shouldn't be as boring as marriage, doing the same things over and over while expecting different results.
Oh, at times we need to make things interesting, you guys. Is bishop b4 check bad? Stockfish says no, it isn't bad. We call these kinds of moves strategic moves that comes with certain ideas. And in my first video on this topic, I explained where I stole this idea from. In case you didn't watch that, we do the same even in the Scotch Gambit. How? Before I continue, just a minute. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and d4, which is the Scotch, we usually take, and after white plays bishop c4, introducing the Scotch Gambit, this is when we usually play bishop b4 check, and once c3 is played, we take. After pawn takes, we play bishop a5, and later on put that bishop on b6. You see how that bishop moved? In some way, we kinda invite white to play pawn to c3 intentionally in order to take away that space for the knight, meaning the queen's knight won't be active anymore. It won't have control over the d5 square in the long run because of that pawn. And the dark squared bishop on b6 is just a monster bishop, you guys. It pins the f pawn. I know this isn't yet convincing. Keep watching. Back to the Italian. Say white can easily play pawn to c3 and gain some tempo. I don't believe that. Neither does Stockfish. Check the eval bar if you don't trust me. So the idea is to go bishop a5. By the way, bishop b4 check is not a strange move. It has been played even at the top level. You can check the master's database. But anyway, pawn to c3, bishop a5. So my lovely viewer here said the knight on c6 gets restricted. To be honest, in the Italian game, we just developed this knight out on a potential square. We have no intention to go knight d4 or knight b4 in most cases. Those are just 0 moves. The purpose of that knight in most cases is to guard the e5 pawn, at least in the opening stage. We are losing a tempo by moving the same piece 3 times. But look, white is also going to move that knight 3 times as well, since they don't have knight c3. No, this is a standard move.
Yes, even bishop b6 is a standard move,
as we saw in the Scotch Gambit. That's why Stockfish doesn't think this is a big deal. But anyway, opinions, right? What can you do in this position? Let's see what people do on leeches. The top played move is pawn to b4, as you can see, trying to attack that bishop. But after this, you can just go bishop b6, and that is great. The whole purpose of bishop b4 check was to entice white to play pawn to c3 so that they no longer have a square for the queen's knight. That queen's knight have to be developed passively like that. They will have to lose some tempo. It is a standard move, yes, I understand, but we also have knight e7 and knight g6. Once again, you can see I'm only showing you the top played moves on chess, meaning this is what people play. a4. Whenever you see that, play a6, not a5. See, if you play a5, white will play pawn to b5. You will have to move your knight and then they will win your pawn on e5. So that's why pawn to a6 wins in this particular position. Just go a6. They can't play b5 due to bishop takes. They can't take due to rook takes. So a6 is the way to go to prevent b5. And what else do people do on chess? You can see pawn to f5 is the top played move, but you have bishop a7. The game is done on the queen side. What do? They castle short. And now up to you to castle short, or first of all play pawn to d6 so that you no longer have to worry about the knight. And what do people do? Bishop g5. As you can see, the eval bar is still equal. Technically speaking, that's the evaluation black gets when the game is just starting. Here you can play h6 if you want. If they play bishop h4, up to you to go g5 or first queen e7 as I recommended in my previous video. What do people do? You can see knight bd2. Now this is when you can go g5. Look at that. After bishop g3, Stockfish recommends castling because you have king g7 and you will be safe in the near future. Once that queen moves, you have moves like knight h4 and that. In this position, you can also play bishop e6. It's a decent move to challenge that light squared bishop. You can also play a waiting move like bishop d7, which may even prepare for castle long in the near future. But I wouldn't mind playing h5 if I'm playing against somebody lower rated than myself. Why? Because I know that that pawn isn't for free due to h4. The dark squared bishop will die anytime soon. There's nothing white can do to save that bishop. I'm just going to be up a piece for nothing. Say knight takes. What about this? As I always say, we always have rook h7. That bishop is still under attack and now we are double attacking that knight. If knight g5, that's when we can take on g3. Knight takes, queen takes. There's checkmate on h2, for God's sake. h3, bishop sack. There's nothing they can do. Queen f3, up to us to play bishop d7 or even better bishop g4, because if queen takes, that'll be checkmate. So once again, think of bishop b4 check as a strategic move to take white out of their comfort zone. As long as the bishop is on a5 like here, white has no time to push pawn to d4, I mean due to that pinned pawn. Even if they do this, I said all these things, I mean you can just take that. Knight takes, you can simply castle short and play pawn to d6. This kind of looks like the Paris defense if you think about it. Oh, knight takes c6. You just take towards the center of the board. You have d5 coming and there's nothing white can do about this. Oh, bishop g5. We can still go d5, by the way. Or queen e8. e5, you have rook e8 or even queen e8, pinning that. If bishop takes, first DC, the bishop is under attack. White has to move back. Bishop g5, check. The bishop is under attack. Bishop that, and bishop e6. Maybe white is going to lose a pawn if they castle short, so they have to do something. Could it be that? Check the eval bar for yourself. So once again, bishop b4 check in this position is just a strategic move. In short, what I'm saying is there are many ways to kill a rat. Choose a move sequence that you best understand. There are many roads you can take in order to reach the promised land. In this case, you just want to play something that will give you a comfortable middle game that you understand best. Bishop c5 is okay. I also covered that line. So up to you to play bishop c5 or bishop b4 check. As for me and my family, we've all agreed bishop b4 check is so interesting. Anyway, by the way, I should give credit to the person who wrote this comment. He gave some very nice ideas, and to be honest, this was a well detailed and insightful comment. I like comments like this. But bishop b4 check is not a blunder. it's not even bad. I mean, speaking of tempo, there are certain openings where tempo means nothing. For example, in the Caro-Kann, we play c6, and after d4 we play d5. After pawn to e5, in most cases we play c5, which is the Botvinnik chaos variation, one of the deadliest weapons in the Caro-Kann defense. See that we kinda lost a tempo by making 3 pawn moves that seem to do nothing. But these are all strategic moves, cause white also lost 3 tempos by, just playing with pawns. Sometimes we do these things because we know our opponents can't do anything. This is what we call positional play. It's not just about losing tempos. In the Italian game, white usually goes for a setup with d3 and pawn to c3. That's called the gioco pianissimo. I have a course on that. A beautiful one, of course. All these arguments are positive, but every game of chess has 3 stages: the opening stage, the middle game, and the end game. Just because you play so well in the opening, it doesn't mean you always win your games. You still have to work for your meals in the middle game and in the end game. So the opening stage is just one piece. Those d3 and c3 moves will still fight in the middle game. I just want to get the position that I understand well, as long as Stockfish approves, like in the case of bishop b4 check. And in most cases, we don't even care about pawn to d4. For example, after bishop b4 check, I said white plays c3, and then you do that. I mean, there's no point for white to play d4. The pawn on c3 is pinned in this position. Even if they play d4, you can just take. And sometimes we can even castle short. I mean, that's just how zero of a move that d4 is. I mean, d takes, we can go knight g4, queen e7 in the near future and get back that pawn like we do in the Budapest. This is also playable. Of course, here you don't want to take on e4 due to queen d5, even though that can also work. But you just want to be careful before you take on e4 with your knight. So knight g4 works. Your maneuver takes 3 moves in the opening, far too slow for modern opening. And so is the gioco pianissimo by nature. So the commenter said white can play pawn to d3 and c3. This is called the gioco pianissimo. Do you know what this means, guys? This means a very quiet game, or in literal words we can say very slow chess. So white is playing slow chess. Why should we rush with our moves? No need. We are also playing slow chess. I mean, they will play knight bd2 at some point, knight f1, knight g3, trying to sit on f5, but we have d6 and we can just take if we so wish. Lastly, the point of bishop g5 is to take on f6. This is what I covered in my last video. I mean, we don't care about this, to be honest. If white takes on f6 with their dark squared bishop, guess what they are doing? They are just giving up their bishop pair, and in most cases we'll be castling long. Let me explain. Say in this position white plays b4, we have bishop b6 as always. They play a4, we have a6, a5, bishop a7, castle short, d6, paving the way for our light squared bishop. Now bishop g5. You see, if I want, I can allow white to take this knight. Yeah, evaluation is 0.5 in favor of white. Yep, but that's a slight advantage if you think about it. It's like the game is just starting. That's what Stockfish is saying. And now that you see the advantage of forcing that move pawn to c3 which white played. Their knight is not on c3, so they have no time to play knight d5. That's the point. What if they take? That's good for us. We haven't yet castled short. So we have a point of attack on the king side. Our rook is going to shine the most. Rooks smile on open files. White can't reach us on the king side just yet. They have queen b3. What can they do? Here Stockfish says better even castle short if you want and put your king on g7 later on if you want. But what I'll do is to play rook h7, protecting that. Also, allowing my rook to sit on g7 someday. That's just a point of attack. What can they do? Knight bd2, we talked about this. They want to play knight g3 in the near future, but we have rook g7. And look at that. Look at this. There's rook e1. First, our king will sit on f8 in the long run. That'll be a safest spot. Once again, we have knight g6. We have knight f4. These are just strategic moves. Okay, knight f1. Let's continue with this. How about bishop g4? We are going to take, and there's nothing white can do about this. They have to go back maybe somehow. And now knight f4. Knight g3, h5. We have this. h3, h4.
pawn takes hg. Because of our dark squared bishop, white cannot take our g3 pawn. Their f2 pawn is pinned. So you see what I was talking about. These are strategic moves, you guys. And there's another comment from a different guy that read, this is hop chess. Well, if this is hop chess, then I guess all the opening repertoires can be termed as hop chess, because in reality we do not know what our opponent will play. Brothers, this is not hop chess. And how do you know this is not hop chess? I just showed you the top played moves on lichess, moves that people play. For example, after setting up the Italian 2 knights defense in the d3 Italian, and you go bishop b4 check, you can see that the top played move is c3, played by over 400,000 people. How is this hop chess? Hop chess is like playing some trappy moves in the hope that your opponent falls for them, or thinking that your opponent won't see your dirty tricks coming. That is what we call hop chess. But these are standard moves, the top played moves. You can see with your own eyes. b4, this is the top played move. You go bishop b6, they play a4. How is this hop chess? Now, speaking of this other idea of bishop c5, castle shot, d6, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, and knight e7. Once again, this is not hop chess. See, we are not even praying for our opponent to take on f6. That is not even the main area of our meat. The purpose of playing knight c7 really is to put that knight on g6. Done. So even if white doesn't take, let's say they play knight c3, we just want to play knight g6. This is our main goal. So this can't be hop chess. Knight g6 is attacking that. If they take, they just help us to activate our queen. If knight c6, I mean our queen is under attack, we can play queen d8. We lose nothing. c6 is coming. So this is positional chess. Not hop chess. I mean, after knight c7, if white takes, well and good. We simply take. Again, we have a point of attack. This is not hop chess. So, responding to the term hop chess, let me explain. Just like I said at the beginning, there's what we call superseding concept in chess. You gotta Google that. There's what we call candidate moves, alternative moves, positional sacrifices, clearance sacrifices, etc. Strong players always have a fallback plan. Plan B, meaning once the first plan doesn't work, we use plan B, or we go back to normal chess following the basic principles. Right, so in my next video, I will be proving these things to you in real games by challenging real random opponents on lichess to show you how real these things are.